Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Hitman 3, Resident Evil Village, Returnal, Mass Effect Legendary Edition, Mario Golf Super Rush, Overboard, Alba A Wildlife Adventure, Genesis Noir, and The Pedestrian. All told, 2021 has been a stellar year for video games, especially when taken in the shadow of just how much we've all collectively been through. That said though, what about the other side of the coin? No one would blame any studio for failing to bring their titles together in a year dogged by so many obstacles, but with that in mind, some titles simply don't deserve your time. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 7 worst video games of 2021 so far. Number 7, Destruction AllStars. A PS5 exclusive so ludicrously mediocre, even the majority of large-scale outlets doing 2021 roundups keep forgetting it exists, Destruction AllStars certainly looked polished enough, but the reasons to play end there. Attempting on paper to be something of a hybrid between Destruction Derby and Rocket League, this should have been the easiest open goal in recent Sony history. A pick-up-and-play arcadey vehicle destruction game that let you smash opponents with a variety of weapons and power-ups, all while unlocking cooler skins and even story chapters to flesh out the roster. The issue comes first from gameplay. Destruction AllStars' core feel is simply not that satisfying. Physics are barely deployed when connecting with vehicles, and the only weapons you're given access to come from character-specific power-ups, which aren't anywhere near as frequent as they should be. Second, and worse, is Sony trying to monetize their otherwise free giveaway of a title alongside a PlayStation Plus subscription, coming with premium story mode microtransactions that kick in after only the first chapter of content. Taken with such bare-bones gameplay, it feels like what was once a full game releasing in 2019 has been segmented to monetize PlayStation 5 owners during the console's extended launch window. Audiences haven't responded to this one bit, leaving Destruction AllStars dead in the water. Number 6, Harvest Moon One World. It should not be this hard to get a Harvest Moon game right. The franchise kicked off millions of fans' collective love for the farming genre, something that developers Natsume have continually failed to capitalize on, eventually leading to Eric Concerned Ape Baroni making Stardew Valley by himself just to get a decent farming experience off the ground again. Back to Harvest Moon though, and after the confusing event of the early 2010s where the IP branched into Story of Seasons and Harvest Moon itself, neither have been especially recommendable across the last decade. Sadly, that trend has continued into the 2010s, where Harvest Moon One World is yet another barely held together release, its graphics abysmal by modern standards and its general level of care and attention being rock bottom. Both Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons now run concurrently, but ironically for a title that started off just wanting to live up to their reputations in the first place, Stardew Valley has far eclipsed its own source material. Number 5, Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance. To invoke the Dark Alliance name in gaming and not even remotely follow up is quite the feat. Thankfully, the original Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance saw a nice HD touch-up and re-release on modern hardware just before its supposed New Age counterpart dropped. But ironically, it's only highlighted what developers 2K Games should have done instead. Because spiritual successor D&D Dark Alliance has next to nothing in common with its 2001 counterpart, save for lore and some character classes. Instead, for whatever reason, but I'm betting on good old corporate influence, 2021's Dark Alliance is a, and stop me if you've heard this before, squad-based co-op action game with loot components, repeated biome grinds, watered-down ability unlocks, and waves of repeat enemies to take on. It's fine for half an hour or so until the bugs, lack of animation polish, and generally grindy empty core completely wear you down. Number 4, Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood. Deep breathing for this one, as for as much as part of me can totally channel my teenage self, just loving the idea of playing as a big old werewolf, yeeting enemy soldiers through parts of the environment, Blood Rain 2 style, the reality of Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood, if I apply any objective rationale, is a threadbare title that completely squanders its best parts. It honestly sucks to say because titles like this should feel like a throwback gem. Even the Minority Report tie-in had fun, Havoc physics-based carnage, but Earthblood is dragged down in every respect. A bizarre structure has you camping out outside a facility, running missions inside and then returning, only to do it all over again for hours at a time. Character animations are almost a decade and a half out of date, the levels themselves are completely forgettable, and the core stealth component that's supposed to factor into a risk-reward mechanic of deciding when to become a hulking big werewolf just turns into you doing it all the time, because you can easily butcher your way through the whole game and never have to engage with enemies properly. Add on the fact this game is part of the beloved world of darkness fiction, something that does not come through across its 8-hour runtime, and again, although there are some laughs to be had, Earthblood is a shockingly empty release. Number 3, Evil Inside. Okay, we've definitely hit peak where the hell is PT/Silent Hills territory. It feels like every year there's a handful of ostensibly PT clones coming with slow corridor crawls, distant crying infants, slow burn reveals of what's really going on, and massive volume spiking jump scares trying to leave a mark. As Konami continue to barely put out any titles worth your time though, it seems they're happy to let the IP sit idly by, watching the masses, and I do mean the masses, cash in. Where the likes of 2018's Visage is a highly recommendable, albeit fairly cheaply made PT-alike, Evil Inside, a 40-minute carbon copy of PT, does very little to justify a price tag. Borrowing its base setup from the unreleased Silent Hills, centering on a murdered family and the father being culpable, even the base layout of the environment, color palette, and sound design are all lifted from 2014's short-lived demo. Sadly, while the game is a streamer's dream to react to, Evil Inside only reminds you of what could have been from the team-up of Hideo Kojima, Guillermo del Toro, and Norman Reedus, rather than carrying on from where they left off. Number 2. Taxi Chaos. In the pantheon of new age IPs trying to rekindle forgotten franchises, your Dangerous Drivings, your Road Redemptions, your Back 4 Bloods, Crazy Taxi is something Sega haven't touched since 2014, and even that was a mobile app. While the IP was beloved thanks to an immediately iconic, crazy announcer, solid chunky gameplay, and a stellar punk soundtrack for the time, there's almost no market for it in the modern day, save for doing the Tony Hawk's remake treatment and focusing on nostalgia. Taxi Chaos then is a completely soulless ripoff, with none of the songs, charm, announcer, or characters to justify its existence. Outside of original IP comparisons, there just isn't enough to do in the game. 90-second sessions see you picking up passengers and dropping them off, and then that's it. You can either go again and try to get a higher score, try to find some shortcuts, or just play something else. Maybe someday we get a really slick Crazy Taxi with genuine energy coursing through its veins once again, but for now, Taxi Chaos is not it. And number 1, Balan Wonderworld. The game's so bad the co-creator of Sonic the Hedgehog departed the games industry. Balan Wonderworld was the latest all-eyes-on release from Yuji Naka, someone who programmed the original Sonic, then went on to oversee the masterful likes of Phantasy Star Online and the, sure I guess, likes of Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. Now back in a directing role for the first time in decades, Naka immediately clashed with Square Enix's higher-ups, as he wanted to make a time-tested platformer and they wanted something far more story-driven. The result was the most ambitious project Yuji Naka had ever tried, an attempt to craft 80 separate abilities for the protagonist to use across 80 different costumes, whilst also co-writing a Balan novelization to flesh out the lore side of this new mythology. Sadly, with just a brutally tight 2-year development window, these lofty goals were near impossible, and the launch of Balan Wonderworld was, by all accounts, a complete mess. CG cutscenes are the only thing that comes across as finished, with the game itself tragically making all 4 face buttons do the exact same thing. A bafflingly broken reverse level of detail loading glitch sees NPCs de-res and disappear as you try to speak to them, and the game's core movement and platforming is just the fundamentals of jumping and pushing the analog stick. A disastrous development period, argumentative producing studio, and overconfident lead creative led to 2021's first truly terrible video game. And those are my picks for the 7 worst video games of 2021. Let me know your own favorites down in the comments below and what your general thoughts on the generation have been so far. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.